pasture is going to be different. Every ranch is going to be different. There's going to be different places and different pastures that are going to recover different. You're going to see your sands recover, sandier areas maybe recover a little slower than your tighter areas. There's certain species that are going to come back quicker in your grasses. But I use a kind of a general rule of thumb. Our native pastures are native for a reason. They've been through droughts, they've been through floods, they've been through fires. They're native for a reason. So if you've had some seed base in those pastures, if they're just not slicked off like this floor on a regular basis, there's a good possibility those are going to recover on their own with rain and time. So it's just, how much rain do you get? How much time can you afford to give those pastures to come back? Erosion may be a little bit of an issue. I know we've slicked off some pretty sandy stuff along highways and roads. We may have some issues with some blowing. We made a quick tour this morning, went through the turkey track and back through some of Rob A's country, and we can see a tint of green. Well, that's refreshing feeling, thinking that we're that close. Luckily, this was not in December, so we're not too far away from still green up, so let's hold on to that. Water erosion, hopefully we'll get things green back up and get it healed over before we get a gully washer, a hard rain. Hopefully we'll get most of that healed back up prior to that. Most of your grasses, like I said, buffalo, blue grama, side oats, big blue stem, little blue stem, Indian grass, those are all pretty fire tolerant. Depending on the heat of the fire, how it had been grazed recently, how it had been grazed long term, but most of those are pretty tolerant of fire. Also tolerant is things like sagebrush, shin oak, sumac, some things that you don't really want. Mesquite, y'all seen mesquite burn, Rob? What's it do? Just makes it mad. So there's a lot of those species that are still tolerant. Plums, that's another good thing. Your plums are going to be okay, more than likely. Eastern red cedar, they may take a hit, which that's fine. If it kills some of those, that's probably okay in a lot of the big scheme of you guys deal in your operation. In terms of grazing, of course, kind of goes without saying, the longer you can stay out of it and let it recover, of course, this is all based off of rainfall. The better off those pastures will be. If you can afford to stay out of it, the better they're going to be, the quicker they're going to recover. Acres, and these are real rough numbers, and I haven't publicized it, or I don't have a handout on this because this is not official. Okay, so the smokehouse fire, which was the big one, it was roughly 1,078,000 acres. And don't hold me to these because I measured these really rough a couple nights ago. Carson, about 10,000. This is just for the smokehouse fire. Gray County, about 4,500 or so. Hemp Hill, 409,000. Hutchinson, 185,000. About 30,000 over in Oklahoma. And 437,000 in Roberts. So let's look at Roberts and Hemp Hill. Roberts at 437 that I mentioned, there's about 545,000 acres of grass in that county, so about 80% of it burned. Okay. Hemp Hill's about that same boat. They're maybe more like about 82 or 3 or 4%. Hutchinson, it's about half. It's just a tick under half of the grass acres. That Windy Deuce, is there anybody impacted by that fire? Would have been back? Okay. Carson County was about 67,000. Hutchinson was about 4,000. Moore County was 14,000. Potter County was 61,000. Then Juliet Pass, I know there's some guys in here from Claude. That fire was about 3,000. And then another fire over in Oldham County that was another 3,200 acres or so. So that's just kind of some rough numbers on fire. Let's make this an open meeting. If you got questions, ask. Shoot your hand up and ask. Okay. Let's don't skip past anything. As we start into the program side, I want to introduce some NRCS people. And Christy Oates is here. She's our state conservationist. Christy, if you'll come forward.
Thanks, Rick. And certainly our thoughts and prayers are with you. Thank you for taking your time today to come out and listen to what the FPAC agencies have to offer for you for this disaster. The Environmental Quality Incentive Program is one of the programs that NRCS has to offer for the disaster. You will have from now until Monday, April the 8th, if you are interested in signing up for EQIP. It will cover a number of conservation practices. The full list of those practices will be forthcoming. We also have the Emergency Watershed Protection Program that's offered through the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Stacy Riley will come up in just a minute and give you just a brief highlight of what that program has to offer. You'll hear a number of opportunities. There are many that both are offered from the Farm Service Agency and the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We will be working hand in hand to meet your needs. We're here to serve you, and we want to address your specific resource concerns on your particular place. So we will work together. There are a number of programs that may work, and specifically certain practices that may work better through, say, the Emergency Conservation Program with FSA. NRCS will work through that. If there's something that's not working there, we may have the opportunity to offer that through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So just know we're going to work together, and we're going to do our best to be able to meet all of your needs. As mentioned during the session, you have questions or immediately afterwards, NRCS staff is here to help you. We do have some EQIP applications with us. If you would like to sign up today, we're more than happy to take those from you. So certainly this is your time, and we want to make the most of it. Stacy, if you want to come up real quick and talk about EWP.
Thanks, Chrissy. Like Chrissy said, I'm with NRCS. Just briefly, if you're in the room and you represent some type of a subdivision of government, even if it's on your personal time or your professional time, I don't care why you're here. That's who I'm talking to right now, because we do have available the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. I don't know if you noticed, but the community river runs right through there, so we could protect that. So that could be definitely something, but we have to have a project sponsor for that. And we'll be talking to your county commissioners, judges, city officials, and it could be this tiniest city in the world could be a sponsor, but we do have to have a sponsor. So if you know somebody that we can be impacted, we can work on private lands through that program, but would be more about protecting that water source and making sure we don't blow away. So we're public goods, something for the public good, protecting public highways, the water systems, whatever we need. So that's what we could potentially do with that program. We will be happy to do some further research on that as far as doing the disaster recovery to see exactly what's needed, but we're working towards that right now. But it is available. We're set on go to see what we can do with that program in this area too. So.
Okay, one other thing that I thought about or I had written down that I didn't mention, donor hay or hay that you're getting from people, that you may not know where that hay is coming from, and you may not know what's in it. You may have weeds, you may have some bugs that you're not interested in, I don't know, fire ants, if they'll travel this far up here in this part of the world. I keep looking at Rob A. He's from Central Texas too. So, but that's another thing to be careful of. One last thing before we dive into programs. When you come to see us and start working on whether it's our programs or FSH programs, you know, the first thing we're going to do is sit down and try to figure out how many acres, how many feet of fence, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have your own maps, or if you can develop some a little bit of information, that'd be fantastic. Some of you may use some sort of GIS platform in your operation, Google Earth, something of that nature. That's great. There's a really simple, I think we've got handouts out there outside. There's a really simple tool that you can use called Map My Property. It's got a long address. Just Google Map My Property. You'll find it. Map My Property, just Google. Google's my friend. So just Google Map My Property. It's a very simple tool. It's a Texas A&M, A&M Forest Service. I think it's A&M Forest Service. It's an A&M Forest Service tool. You go down on the left side, you'll see that handout, but you can just draw around your pastures. It'll give you the acres. Or you can draw a line, and it'll give you the feet. So that would be something very, very handy to bring in, especially when you're working with FSA and their programs on pieces of pastures that are burned or whatever, you know, you maybe want to defer out of a rest or want to sign up through maybe one of their programs. We have lots of maps in our offices for your operations, but there's a good chance we don't have everything that we're going to need or they're going to need. So that Map My Properties is real simple to use. Down at the bottom, you can export it to a PDF and print it. So it's pretty simple to use. So you might look at doing that. Okay, diving into programs. EQIP, she mentioned that we're now taking a sign up. So it'll run through April the 7th. That's a Monday, April the 7th. And so get in and see us. And I'll kind of dive in real quickly on what 8th.
Yep.
Stacy was gonna make me work on Sunday. April the 8th, I'm sorry. April the 8th. There are certain things that we're gonna handle through EQIP and certain things they're gonna handle through their programs, specifically ECP and fencing, and they'll get into that. If you lost water tanks, tubs, if you lost solar panels, if you lost a windmill, those are probably things that's gonna run through EQIP. The program is gonna kind of have a, for lack of a better term, it's gonna kind of have a fast track approach where we can get through a lot of things a whole lot quicker than we have in the past with just our traditional EQIP signups. So come see us. That's the main thing, is just come see us. But we'll be able to look at that. The grazing, we've done it different ways over the years with different fires. It appears how we're gonna do it this year, and this is still just a tick subject to change, but probably how we're gonna do it. It will be a $8.67 per acre payment. If that goes along with resting the pasture. And how long you rest the pasture is depending on recovery, okay? If it sets in here and rains and it looks like the Garden of Eden by July or August, you may be able to turn back in on it. If it stays dry and we don't get any growth, then you'd stay out of it. We pay you at the end of the growing season or into the summer or into the fall. And then if you needed to rest it again next summer, we could do the same thing again next summer and pay you again, $8.67. And then pay you, we typically pay those at the beginning of the next growing season. So like if we were resting a pasture in 2023, you rested it, or you did it correctly, you grazed it correctly, we pay it at the beginning of the next year's growing season. So it'd be right now. It's when we'd be paying those that were rested last year. But that appears that that's what we're gonna do. So it's gonna be very case by case, and very much we'll see what happens with the weather, with rainfall.
Are there any caps or acres?
No caps on acres. Good question though, good question. There's still, this falls under EQIP. And there may be some of you that have run up against your EQIP farm bill limit for this farm bill, which is $450,000 per person or per entity, depending on how you're structured. We've got some people that I know are bumping that. And I don't expect us to have a farm bill just by the looks of things, by the end of the summer. We could, you never know, but I don't imagine it would kick in until next fiscal year. So if you've participated pretty hard in EQIP, you may hit that limit. Adjusted gross income provisions apply to EQIP. They're gonna address their programs. It applies to some of FSA's programs and some it does not. So I'm not gonna try to answer that, that's their deal. There's a possibility of obstruction removal. Like Christy said, we're still waiting on some releases out of Washington to tell us exactly what we're gonna be able to cost share and what we can. If you've got an area that's got real jammed up with trees, if there's a ton of fence removal that's gotta happen, et cetera, there may be some options along that lines that we can do from that. Okay, fencing, big question on fencing. EQIP does fencing, helps pay for fencing. Okay, so we have a program, and you're gonna hear from them in a minute. FSA has a program called ECP, that's the acronym, that will handle fencing. Their program will handle perimeter and cross fencing, both. We typically just do cross fencing. We're starting to loosen EQIP up a little bit where we can do boundary fencing under very specific certain circumstances. Their program is pretty easy to use for all of your fencing. So we're basically they're gonna take fencing, okay? But that does not keep you from signing up under EQIP. Or if you come back later after their program is over, you come back a year from now and wanna sign up a fence that's going to pot, maybe you thought it was gonna be okay, we got a year into it and all the water starts popping, come see us. We can run it through EQIP. But that would, after, because y'all have a set amount of time, right? Would be after years is over with. You could come back to us and we could very well help you with that. Also, there's specs on, you'll hear them talk about when you sign up for fencing through their program, you're supposed to build it to our specifications, and I'll let them go into that just a little bit. Our specs are out there in the hall. If you want to see, it goes into quality of wire, size of posts, way the corners are made, if you need to rebuild a corner, et cetera on that. I think that's all on programs. Adrian, is there anything I missed along along practices side on that? Practices we not pay for? Okay. Water tanks, water tubs. Did anybody lose any? Anybody have anything melt that you know of? Typically, they're beat down around the tanks, the fiberglass isn't gonna, there's usually not enough grass around the tanks to impact those tanks like that. Anybody lose any that they know of? No? Okay, good. That's good. Let's see. Existing contracts. If you've got an existing contract with us, don't worry about it. Let the dust settle, then come see us, and we'll figure out what's next. We may have had a plant. The fire started right up here north of Stinnett on a piece of property that we had just sprayed a year ago that we still got a contract on. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. If you have an application with us that's just about to be funded, we're going to have to revisit those and see if that's still what you want to do or need to do. Okay? Because things have changed. And this is, I kind of want you to understand or make sure you guys got to make a living. Okay? And we understand that. If you got to get back in a pasture, you got to get back in a pasture. We understand that. So if we can help you, and like I said, we try to just pull Washington's programs and what y'all need to do, massage it all and make it fit in a box somehow where we can help you. But if it's not something we don't want you in a bad contract. We don't want you in anything you don't want to be. So if we can help you, great. If we can't, we understand. Anything else? Do y'all have any questions? I understand programs are hard to keep separate. When you start hearing their programs, you're probably going to get confused. I'm still confused from yesterday. One thing I'll ask for is patience for them and for NRCS. I mean, we're fixing to be overloaded. We're going to be very, very busy. We're probably going to, on our side, we're probably going to have some employees from out of this part of the country come in to help us do some things. So please be patient with them and just remember we're trying to help you. So just be patient with these FSA folks. Those ladies are trying to help you. Mostly ladies and men. They're trying to help you. So just be patient.
Kelly Atkins, I'm the state director for the Farm Service Agency here in Texas. Anyway, first off, I want to say that them our hearts go out to all of y'all. I mean, for you and your family, your community. Y'all lost a lot of stuff that y'all worked a tremendous amount of years to put together, and our hearts go out to all of y'all. I just want to let you know that the Farm Service Agency, we're going to be here through thick and thin. We're not going to be here just for today and tell you all about it and then leave you. We're going to be here. We've got a lot of help coming in from throughout the state. We've got dozens and dozens of people that's already reached out to us to come in. So we're going to bring those people in and we're going to take care of it. Even though we're having this one meeting here, like they said, it's kind of confusing on a lot of these programs. And a lot of your neighbors and stuff are still out there. They're trying to assess, how much damage we got, where do we stand on our cattle, where do we stand on our fences. This won't be the only meeting we have. We'll have as many as y'all need to get the word out, okay? Things change day to day about flexibility on some of our guidelines. And we have a person here today that has helped us. You know how government regulations are. That could be just makes you want to point your cotton picking hair out. Well, Zach does know. He's our FSA administrator. He's out of DC, but he's a longtime family ranger out of the Dakotas. He knows firsthand how it is. He's done it all of his life. He's very hands-on as being an administrator. I've worked for FSA for 45 years, worked with a lot of administrators. A lot of them weren't, I'll be honest with you, they weren't worth a flip. They didn't know anything about agriculture, they were just appointed. But Zach, he knows about agriculture, knows about ranching. Anyway, I'm gonna turn it over to Zach and let him say a few words. And anyway, welcome to Governors. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you very much. That probably was too kind, but I wish you'd come home and tell my brothers how smart I am, because they don't think so very much at all. When I first got the opportunity to serve as your FSA administrator, my daughter told one of her friends, and that friend said, wow, it'll be cool to have someone over there that's got BS outside their boots too. Was that a compliment or not? But Kelly really hit on it. Flexibility. I'm your administrator. These are your programs. And if we can find a way to push the boundaries out there and get to what you need, we're going to damn sure try to do it. And we've demonstrated that in the last 3 years, starting in North Dakota when I got a chance to do a drought tour up there, see what was going on with the cattle herd getting sold off there before this market got where it is. We were able to make some enhancements to the ELAT program, which allowed those producers to get some freight assistance to get feed there to keep that mother herd together. Because we went out there, took the guidance from the secretary when he kicked us in the tail and said, get out there, listen to producers and help them. So we did that. Roll along to the next year, we had challenges with winter storms like nobody had ever seen in Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska. And we were able to find even more flexibility in those ELAT programs. And I know firsthand the independent nature of livestock producers. But I'm going to stress to you why it's important that you take advantage of this opportunity. Because this is just as much national defense as those big airplanes that fly over us around those Air Force bases. We've got to make sure that you're all equipped to be able to continue to provide safe, affordable, and quality nutrition to people in this country and beyond our borders. So when we offer out a program and build it out to get around your particular circumstances, that's what we're thinking. We're thinking about an investment in the future of this country, in the future of your operation, in the legacy you want to leave behind, and in your rural communities. So you'll hear from our team about the programs and the flexibilities that we've developed. I want to share with you a couple other points, and then I'd gladly answer any questions. I know too often from my experience in the past, DC officials get up here, say their talking points, and then get out the door. I'd gladly answer any questions you got about anything we're doing. Our farm loan programs are the best in the world. No offense to our friends at Amarillo Bank. Thanks for letting us have a meeting here, share with our producers. We have strong partnerships with our lending community. And oftentimes, one of the best solutions is for FSA to shoulder a little of that debt burden, because we can offer rates and terms that lenders might not be able to. And that might be what it takes to get you over the hurdle. So think about the farm loan side of our work that we have as well. Not only the emergency loans, but refinancing and partnering with your lender to help get your debt structured in a way that recovery is more in your control. I had a chance to visit my friend Dennis McKinney, the state executive director in Kansas, after the Four Counties fire up there. And the sentiment that I took away from that was one that really emboldened me to get out there and even be a more full-throated advocate for our producers, because they lost every acre of grass. They lost 8 of 9 buildings, and they found the grace and patience and humility to host us in one of their buildings and host a community meeting in one of their buildings so that we could share the opportunities that we can afford to producers through our programs. Meanwhile, they're waiting for 1.5 years on action from us. They could have took advantage of that and beat the heck out of us in that meeting, but they didn't. They said, we just want an answer, and we just want you all to share what you have with these folks. One of the most important pieces of information from my perspective that I can give you while I'm here is my contact information. So I will give that out here, and it's on our website in case you don't have a pen or a phone fast enough. But my phone number is 202-941-4675. Again, that's 202-941-4675. And my email is Zach, Z-A-C-H, dot Ducheno, D-U-C-H-E-N-E-A-U-X at USDA.gov. And you get me when you use those. You don't get staff. Much to my staff's chagrin sometimes. The secretary talked with Commissioner Miller yesterday and assured him that we will do everything we can as a department to be flexible and accommodating and get the assistance that you're all entitled to out there quickly. And it's our charge to carry that out. Our programs still may miss you. What's important is that you share your circumstances with us, share them directly with me if we do miss. Because the good ideas that we've had about increasing our discretion and our flexibility in these programs didn't necessarily come from inside. It came from us listening to producers, listening to where we were missing the mark, and being humble enough as your civil servants to say, you know what? We messed up and we're going to try to fix that. And we have over and over again since we've had the last 3 years to work on this approach. Your staff in the local county offices, if you're in a different county than the staff that I've met, please thank them for me for the work that they've done. Because I can't get to all of them, but the work they do is literally as heroic as the firefighters are doing for you. And they're doing it oftentimes, right now, for instance, not knowing whether or not we're going to have a budget to pay them with next week. Think about that for a little bit. They're in the exact same boat you are. We want to make sure that we express our appreciation to them everywhere we go. So I was back home on the ranch just yesterday morning. The secretary found out he was going to get a call with Commissioner Miller, and he said, get down there. We need to let them know that we see what's going on and that we are ready to help when they are ready for it. I got a chance to visit some young producers who are still actively in the recovery mode, the response mode, shipping cows to greener pastures. Gracious, humble, way better natured than I would have been in similar circumstances. And that sense of community that I saw there in Kansas, the sense of community that I see here in the Panhandle, where you've got feed drop locations just happening. That's fantastic response. Our job is recovery. Please let us help you. Please let us know what we can do better. Please let us know what is working, because it is our duty and obligation to serve you all better. The secretary asked that I extend his regards to you. He has the vantage point to see disasters all across the country, and it isn't every day that he sends me somewhere to go and represent. So we see it loud and clear. We know that there's help that's needed, and our teams are ready to assist. I will poke fun at my friends at NRCS for calling our stuff confusing, because they did say, you got to hurry up for FSA's stuff, but get signed up for ours by April 6th or 8th or 7th. Our LIT program is probably going to be the most prevalent, and I want to just touch real quickly on that, and I'm sure our staff will do a better job. But the sooner we can get some of your losses accounted for, the sooner we can get the wheels in motion to pay you. You can always come in and true that up as you start to realize the true scope of your loss. We don't mind seeing you twice. We'd rather see you as soon as you have the information, so that we can start to work through any documentation that you do have to help you build that record that can help us get you that indemnity payment, so that you can start to make a plan. Some of you might not know what the calf count is till fall. That's okay. Come back in the fall. You've got till the first part of next year to sign up for LIP, which is several months after that April deadline. poking fun of my friends at the NRCS again. All kidding aside, we love the partnership that we have with the NRCS. For those of you that have reached that farm bill limit, come across the building and talk with us. That limit doesn't apply to our programs, that applies to theirs. There are separate limits that apply to ours. We want to make sure that we're working together so that our programs are like this and not like that. So if we're just usually in the same building, come on across. With that, I would ask if there's any questions of me. If there's not, I'll let the smart people talk, and I want to thank you again for your time. Any questions? My heart goes out to all of you. God bless you, and best luck in the coming production year.
We're gonna be talking about 6 different programs that are administered through the Farm Service Agency. And like I said, we'll come back and we'll hold as many meetings as we need to like Zach was saying, that some of them are pretty damn complicated, and you know, some of them require documentation. And Zach has already helped us just in the last 2 days, helped us on a lot of that documentation. The flexibility kind of lightening up on that. But a lot of that documentation that we're gonna need here at the office, your accountant's gonna want y'all to submit that to your accountant too, you know, for your Schedule F and your income tax, you know, repairs, all the supplies you're buying. So it's some of the documentation you're gonna be taking to your accountant, we're gonna be bringing into FSA. But dive into questions real quick. We're gonna get started with all the programs. All right.
First, sorry there's not PowerPoints. We do have PowerPoint presentations that each one of us are going to use. We will make sure they are all available to the county offices. So I know we're going to go fast. I know we live in acronym land, so we're going to throw not just the kitchen sink, but all the alphabet at the same time. We'll do our best. If you have questions, please ask. I can't see the back of the room, so I'm nearsighted, but I can see that far. My name is Robert Frost. I'm a CED from Taylor County, Callahan County, south of here. Mr. Atkins hit me up at the farm show in Abilene last week and said, hey, you want an all expense paid trip to the Panhandle? You can't tell the boss no. Part of that is every one of these programs we've administered recently. I've had fires in both my counties. The Mesquite Heat Fire in 22 in Taylor County, not near the scope you're dealing with, but still 11,000 acres. I don't care if it's 1 acre or a million, it's too much. The devastation, walking on fields, that fire was like a lunar landscape. The ash from the cedar trees was so thick, it was rough. I-beams melted in houses and all that stuff. So I've been there, I've seen it, I've been on the properties. My heart goes out to you. My program today is going to be ELAP. That's what I'm going to talk to you about. It's one of the newer tools in our toolbox. It's got a lot of different components that I think you can find useful, mostly going to be transportation, but also some grazing loss stuff. Before I go too far, because I told Rick I wouldn't forget and I wrote it down. Hutchinson County is administered out of the Spearman office in Hansford. So if you need FSA program help there, you need to reach out to Rick and his team. Rick Hargrove is here somewhere, and most of his team is here too, I believe. So reach out to them, they'll help you. Worst case scenario, go on fsa.usda.gov. There is an office locator, map of Texas, and you can find it that way.
Good guys.
So ELAP's going to cover a lot of different things. Grazing losses due to wildfire on non-federally managed land, purchased feed or forage or feedstuffs destroyed because of a fire, mechanically harvested forage or feedstuffs destroyed because of a fire, additional cost of purchasing livestock feed above normal quantities. These next 3 pieces are typically associated with drought, but just like we've been saying, things are changing as we're doing stuff. We did a program yesterday in Canadian. There's different information today than there was yesterday. So bear with the offices. You may go in tomorrow, ask a question. You may not get that answer the next day. It's there. So just bear with us. We're trying our best. But transporting water to eligible livestock, transporting livestock or additional feed to livestock mileage above normal, transporting livestock additional mileage above normal. So if you're needing to move your livestock from road pastures to pastures that have grass, we can use ELAP to do that. As I said, typically that's associated with drought. We're not in this area at this time, but the National Office through the State Committee has granted wildfire exceptions for Armstrong, Briscoe, Carson, Collinsworth, Dallam, Donnelly, Gray, Hansford, Hartley, Hemphill, Hutchinson, Lipscomb, Moore, Appletree, Oldham, Potter, Randall, Roberts, Sherman, Swisher, and Wheeler, and some Oklahoma counties as well. And then I think even this morning they said they're stretching into Nebraska. So with these wildfires, this is changing as we move. So know that everything I'm talking about, y'all are eligible.
Yes, it is. Good.
So the first one is livestock feed transportation. On livestock feed, most of you have probably used this, and we've used it in the last couple of years with droughts. So this one, we're paying for the transportation, not the purchase of the feed. We did get the rate this morning. We didn't know that for sure yesterday, but it is going to be $6.60 a mile. So that's the same rate we had for 23. So what we're covering is the additional cost of transporting livestock feed above normal. So if you do normally haul some feed outside of a 25-mile radius, those are going to be miles you need to write down. And then we would offset what you're doing due to the disaster because of the normal. The feed must be transported to eligible livestock that would normally have been on eligible grazing land physically located in the county. So they are going to have to be cattle that were on pasture. We're not talking about feedlot cattle. So if you had specifically feedlot cattle, that's not applicable here. But if you had cattle on pasture, that's what we're talking about. And then we've already covered normal grazing period. We're in that. It is hay, it's feed, it's protein tubs, whatever you're using to provide those nutrients for your livestock. Those are the items that we're talking about being transported. They would be transported to eligible livestock. Again, that's the same statement, normally been on grazing land in the county. And then transported additional mileage above normal, not to exceed 1,000 miles. So the way the program is set up, the first 25 miles is basically on you, and then it caps it at 1,000 miles on that loaded mile. So if you go 1,200 miles, it's going to stop it at 1,000. L knows it does not subtract the 25, it subtracts whatever's over 1,000.
Different slide. That's risk list.
Okay. It says, this one says ineligible, but it's really not ineligible. It's just kind of the basics of the rules. The first 25 miles, so if you stay within a 25-mile radius, we're not going to pay on that. If you go 50, we're only paying you on 25. Empty miles, we do not pay on empty. It's loaded mile. So basically, your one-way miles. And then mileage over 1,000, again, that we cap it at 1,000. Documentation on this particular one is producer certification. If you buy hay from somewhere, you buy feed from somewhere, they deliver it to you, it's easy enough to have some kind of receipt where they put the mileage. That is fantastic. That gives us what we call verifiable documentation, because we can verify that who you bought it from. If you're going to get the feed yourself or something like that, I still like to say Big Chief tablet. Write it down. What day did you go? Where'd you leave from? Where'd you come back to? How many miles did you go? How many truckloads? So if you and a buddy take off and you go 500 miles, that's 2 trucks. That's 2 loads. Again, you'll document your current year, or it's actually the current year, so what's going on now versus normal. It's Texas, normal is a difficult conversation. It's supposed to be a non-disaster year is what we're looking at. Again, you're gonna track number of loads and number of miles. Again, it's producer certification, so you're gonna let us know that. If you've got those records when you do apply with the application for payment, we'll take them. It's a whole lot easier to take them when you've got them than when they go in the dashboard filing system. The oblivion that gets lost. So at some point in time, they may get asked to provide those. So if we already have them and they get asked for, we've already got it. Things like feed receipts where you bought the feed, showing, the place where you bought it from, we can check the miles back and forth or whatever. Those are the type of documents we're looking for when we do have to get them. Livestock transportation. This is probably one that's going to become more prevalent in this area. Again, basically the same rules as the feed. The livestock have to be transported above normal. Most people probably don't move their cattle, but if you are in this instance, and then the mileage is, again, that 25 miles. Fine grass right now, you're probably having to go more than 25 miles. It caps it at 1,000. It's still using the same $6.60 rate on that. And then the difference here, whereas on hay, it's one way, on the livestock transportation side, we'll pay on the shipping them where you're going. And when you get grass, we get to pay on bringing them back. And it is still number of loads. If it takes you 5 truckloads to get all your cattle, it's that mileage times 5. Same rules as far as the ineligibility, the 25 miles, empty miles, or over 1,000. So that component is exactly the same. The documentation is basically the same there too. So if you're hiring trucks out and they're hauling them for you, if they give you a receipt, show you how many miles, that gives us verifiable documentation. If not, write it down on a big chief tablet. For my office, we've got little log sheets that we've created that we can hand to people. Everybody kind of does something different. It's just kind of a contemporaneous record. So, and again, it's number of miles and number of loads. Another component that, at least in the short term, may be important is water hauling. Water hauling works a little bit different in that we're not paying mileage, we're paying on water. The rate we learned this morning is going up to 10 cents a gallon. It was 7 cents for 23, so we are using 10 cents as our base for 2024. You must be hauling it to eligible livestock. Again, it's an eligible loss event, which we know we have. Incurred in grazing land in the physical location, so we're in the county, we know we're good there. Had an adequate water system prior to the disaster. Most people were probably in good shape. If you had a pasture that didn't have water that you were normally hauling water to, that's what this is going to. But if you had wells and they were functioning, you had ponds and their tanks and they were functioning, but now you don't have water, this can help you out. On water hauling, we need to know when you begin hauling, when you stop, how many gallons you're hauling each time. Some of the documentation can get a little bit harder here. Use that word carefully. If you're buying water, you're getting a receipt. You can provide us that. Again, that's verifiable. We know exactly how many gallons you've bought, how many you've hauled. If you're doing it yourself, some kind of pictures of what you're hauling water in help us. Whether it's the 250-gallon tanks that sit on the back of your pickup and you're filling both of them up at the same time, 500-gallon tank that you drag, a picture of that, a log that tells us I hauled 2 containers here, 2 containers here, that kind of thing. On livestock watering, there is a hold down rate of 18 gallons per day per head for an adult. Calves, I think it lowers it down to the requirement, not as much. But there are some hold downs, so if we know how many livestock you've got on a pasture where you're hauling water, that helps us as well. That coming up to the required documentation, so just whatever you can do to help us understand what you're using to haul, how often you're doing it, and that kind of stuff. The maximum we can do on that is 150 days as well. So hopefully you won't be in that kind of situation, but if you are, that's the limit. Loss of hay and other feedstuffs. So if you had hay in your hay lot, you had feed in your barn, and that has burned, we can use ELAP to get you some reimbursement on that as well. The feed would have had to be intended for the use of feed to eligible livestock, been destroyed by the fire, and located in the county of the lost condition. So we're gonna meet those probably pretty fast. You're gonna have to help us out here a little bit with the documentation, because this one's looking at values. So we are gonna need to know if you had a ton of cubes in the barn, how much did you pay for the ton of cubes? If you got a receipt, it's gonna get us a value. If you had hay and you had produced the hay, again, we get a little bit trickier here. We've got to get a value to it so that we can get it in the software. But those are things we can work with you on, figure out how to get what was the estimated price of hay in the county for the year or something like that. Again, losses would have been in the county, so we're good there. Grazing losses are kind of the newer part of this. We use these for a couple of producers in Taylor County, and it worked out pretty good. It's changed a little bit. I'm gonna try to catch the changes as we go. Again, I know I'm repetitive, but hopefully this all kind of sinks in. Again, it had to be on eligible grazing lands, so most of you, that's gonna be your grass pastures. We're gonna be good there, located in the county of the loss. And then you must have owned the livestock within 60 days prior to the disaster. That becomes important mainly if you've lost your entire herd. Because if you lost your entire herd, you are still eligible for grazing losses under ELAP. In the past, we compared non-impacted acres to impacted acres, and payment calculations were kind of based off that. As of this morning, we were told we will only be looking at the affected acres. So if you've got 1,000 acres and you lost all 1,000 acres, your payment's based off your 1,000 acres. So that's a big change for 2024. And then on this one, we're limited to 180 days. So if you're kind of sitting there going, okay, he's talked about a whole bunch of stuff, to put it in kind of, how does this help me? You lost your whole place. You've still got your cows. You found grass 200 miles away. We can use ELAP to help you get the cows there, reimburse you for mileage, and pay you up to 180 days grazing loss while they're there. And if you have to haul feed to them, they can help you get you reimbursement on the mileage, going and feeding your cows, that kind of thing. NRCS mentioned their programs for prescribed grazing, deferred grazing. This does not count as duplicate benefits. You can sign up for the prescribed grazing with them and be 180 days with us. Your days will stop when you return to grazing, or in the instance we have right now, as rules are today. If you have some remaining livestock and you do sell out, then your grazing loss would stop. But that's as of today. For ELAP, this is a change from previous years, but you need to file a notice of loss and then subsequently an application for payment. Prior years, the notice of loss had to be filed within 30 days of the loss being apparent. Now, it's just, you need to file one, and you have until 30 days after the calendar year in which the disaster occurred to file your notice of loss and your application for payments. You have until January 30th of 2025 to file both documents. Best thing to do is get your notice of loss on file as soon as you can. It's a CCC 939. It's a new form. On that one, I've talked about feed and livestock transportation. I've talked about water hauling. I've talked about grazing loss due to fire. I've talked about feed stuffs that you've lost that you produced. It's almost best just to say, I had all of it on the notice of loss. And then when it comes time for application for payment, you just apply for the pieces you need. Because if you didn't need water hauling, you don't use that part. Doesn't hurt you. But it's better to have it up front than not need it, than needed to have marked it, didn't mark it. We got to jump through some other hoops. So, what I told the group yesterday, and I think it's a really good thing, it's what we've tried to do with our producers, write down what you've lost. If you lost fences, write down you've lost fences. If you lost cattle, write it down. If you lost feed, if you lost whatever, that way when you come to us, we can sit there and try to figure out all the alphabet soup to point you to the right documents to get you signed up for the things we need to. That's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. Application for payment, you can file as many of those as you need to. So if you haul your cattle Monday somewhere, you can come back and do the application for payment and get reimbursed on the livestock transportation. If you take feed in 2 weeks, you can come in and file an application for payment on taking the feed in 2 weeks. If you haul water for the next 2 weeks and you get done, you can come in and file an application for payment on the water hauling. So you can file as many as you need to. You're eligible for calendar year 2024, the whole year. So that goes to your feed for the whole year, the whole shoot match. The last slide was just kind of some basic housekeeping for FSA. You're going to hear this repeated over and over. Again, it's one of those redundancies to it, but it's an important message. To be eligible for our programs, you're going to complete a CCC 902, which is Farm Operating Plan. That lets us know who you are. We need you to apply for these programs as you conduct your farming and ranching business. So if you're you individually, it's an individual. If you're an LLC, I need you to sign up as the LLC. You're gonna have to bring us, if you haven't already done it, you're gonna have to bring us the SS4 with the ID number, the articles of incorporation, the whole shebang. We're gonna need names, address, social security numbers for all the members to get you set up. Same way with limited partnerships or partnerships. However you're doing business, that's how we need to be doing the programs. We work with NRCS, so if you're gonna do their programs, you're gonna come see us first, so we can get you in the system, get you on the farm, so they can start working with you as well. So, a CCC 901 is gonna be for our entities. That's gonna let us know who our members are and who we're dealing with there. 80-1026 is highly erodible land wetland conservation form. If you've got cropland, that's where that becomes important. We need to know whether it's highly erodible, non-highly erodible. If it's just pasture land, that's a super simple form. CCC 941, which is our adjusted gross income form. If you've done FSA programs, you know that one. That's the $900,000 question. For ELAP, AGI is applicable. So if your 3-year average adjusted gross income is greater than 900,000, then you would not be eligible. The 3 years we're going to look at are 20, 21, and 22. We skipped the most recent, which is 23. So, trying to think if there's anything else I said yesterday. Again, these are kind of evolving as we go. We had a national training this morning. That's where we got the payment rates. There is new software. So if you've done ELAP before, you know we use a spreadsheet workbook. It's kind of cumbersome for us. It works. We've got software coming. It's gonna make it a whole lot easier. They said April 1st, so right now you're gonna file your notice of loss. Hang with us until we get the software April 1st, and then we're gonna be able to do applications for payment. So.
Huseman. I'm from the Dale Smith County office. I'm the CED there. I've worked with Livestock Indemnity multiple times over the last several years. Fortunately, we haven't had to deal with a lot of wildfire, but we have dealt with a lot of blizzards, death losses in feed yards, dairies, things like that. So I'm pretty familiar with that program. So if as we go along here, if you've got any questions, we can stop and ask those and get an answer from there. To start with, livestock indemnity, it's a program that's available for the death losses of your livestock. It's assistance for eligible livestock owners for eligible livestock deaths in excess of normal mortality as a direct result of the eligible loss, which we do have the eligible loss of the wildfire. Also included in that, it would be for livestock owners who suffered losses due to injured livestock. In other words, if you had cattle that were injured and had to be sold
Is that the name?
through a auction barn or sold to a packing plant or something like that, sale barn and etc. It would be anything as far as death losses that occurred within 30 days of the eligible loss. So we're looking here at anything that has died or is injured and sold right up to by the end of March here, which would be your 30 days there. Next, what I've got is to be your eligible livestock. To be eligible under the LIP, the livestock must meet all of the following: be owned by an eligible livestock owner or be in the possession of an eligible contract grower on the day of the eligible loss. Been owned by an eligible livestock owner on the day of the eligible loss conditions that cause injury to the livestock and been maintained and produced for commercial use.
Could it be?
As we go along here, we're talking about what is going to be needed for the livestock indemnity program. The most important thing here is keeping track of your inventories, whether it's your inventories before your loss or inventories of your death records there. So eligible livestock to be continued here is anything that has died in excess of normal mortality. So in other words, you've got to stand the first, what's considered normal mortality, and then anything above that would be eligible livestock to be paid on. Also, would be the same for your injured livestock. That would be the same as that, anything that would be that had died or were injured and were either sold within that 30 calendar days of the loss period there. Eligible livestock also includes beef cattle, dairy cattle, swine, goats, sheep, poultry, anything like that that would have died due to the loss condition there, wildfire there. And the note here is any animal that was pregnant at the time of the death, only the pregnant animal that died is eligible for payment under LIP. The unborn animal is not considered an eligible livestock under LIP. Next, we're going to talk about the eligible livestock owners. An eligible livestock owner means one who is, at the day of the eligible loss and the day the eligible livestock died or were injured as a direct result of the loss condition. Basically, a livestock owner would be if you, whatever the way you own those cattle, the way you buy and sell those, whether it's as your individual name or whether it's through an entity of some sort, such as a corporation, LLC, as Robert had referred to, the way you do your business with your cattle, that's the way you need to do business in our offices. Also, a livestock owner must be a U.S. citizen or a legal resident alien, a general partnership, corporation, individual, LLC, or other type of organizational structure of that sort. I don't know if we do have any livestock contract growers in the area. The contract growers would be producers who are producers of either poultry or swine. Those are the contract types of operations there. They must have a written agreement with the owner of the eligible livestock, setting the specific terms and conditions of the obligations and the parties involved. As talking about the eligible loss condition that we had, which was the wildfire, made us eligible for this program here. Eligible livestock owners and contract growers must show to FSA satisfaction that an eligible loss condition has occurred, which we know it has there. The next thing we do, once you've identified your loss, you're going to go to your county office in the physical location of where the livestock were that died at that time. Basically, we're looking at the service center in that physical location where that is administered there. Basically, you can file a notice of loss with our office either through a phone call, email, or a fax, or come to the office and file it there also. The next thing after a notice of loss is filed, you'll need to file an application for payment. And the deadline for filing the notice of loss and application for payment are 60 days after the calendar year in which the eligible loss condition occurred. So basically, we need you to file your notice of losses as soon as possible, just to let us know who is going to be applying. But in the end, all of it needs to be filed, like I said, within 60 calendar days of when the loss at the end of the calendar year, which is basically going to be March 1 of 25. Next, we're going to talk about the acceptable beginning inventory records here. To establish your losses here, as far as the death losses, you need to do whatever you can as far as filing, taking pictures of the livestock, inventory records as far as whether you've got pictures before they're going to be buried, whether a vet can certify off with how many head died, whether it be cows or calves or stalkers or whatever it may be. Basically, we need to have some type of a record there for those to determine how many livestock had died. Also, besides the records of the cattle or the livestock that had died due to the fire, we need to know what your beginning inventories were on the day prior to the loss condition. So basically on that, whatever you say, for example, if the bank had done a bank inspection and said the first of the year to determine what your inventory may have been at that time and whether you had sold any in between, we can go through and determine what your numbers may be there. Also, other things such as your tax records, contemporaneous records that you may keep, calving records, anything that would show what your inventory was prior to that loss there. For unweaned calves, those are also eligible, and ways to determine that would be what your inventory may be on those calves prior to that loss would be is if you keep calving records or if you are unsure, if you have, you know, say you already said you've estimated that you were at 30% calved at this point, or anything like that. Also, along with some of this information, we could use third-party certifications. And with a third-party certification, that would be with, like, say, your neighbor can sign off and say, yes, he can verify that you had so many head that had died, or how many calves you may have had died, or something like that. We do have a form that you can file for that and everything.
It looks
Acceptable, going back to acceptable proof of death or injury, participants must provide acceptable documentation of livestock deaths or injuries claimed, including livestock that the participant claims died in a normal mortality. So, for example, let's say you had 100 cows, and on as of January 1, and let's say 3 of them had died January 15th. Those could, as long as you have acceptable documentation for those deaths, those three can count towards your normal mortality. And then if they meet your normal mortality, then anything that has died in the wildfires would be eligible to be paid on them at that point. The normal mortality rates that we would look at for live, and I'm talking about cattle here. There's other livestock would be different as far as rates, but as far as cattle, anything under 400 pounds is 5% normal mortality. 4 to 799s is 3%. 800 or above is 2%, and the cows and bulls would be 1.5%. So as long you've got to stand that normal mortality first, and then anything that has died above that would be eligible for a payment there. Again, acceptable documentation must provide sufficient data that identifies the quantity, the livestock kind, type, and weight. That's the other thing that you need to keep in mind as far as when you're keeping these records of your death losses. You need to, especially on your stocker cattle, are they under 400 or are they above 400, 4 to 799 or above? Cows and bulls, they would just all be under the adult cow and bulls. Other documentation that could be provided for proof would be if you've got any type of rendering receipts, vet records. Like I said, if a vet certifies off on how many you may have lost. Again, pictures are very important. Pictures are something that, let's say you've got 10 cows laying out there, or 20, or whatever it may be. Take pictures of those, and then you can bury those. If you've got calves, take pictures of those so that we can identify between the different types and the weight there. Other things as far as if you've got, keep a record on it, keep you a tablet, a book, or something where you're going out and finding these. I think with the group that is said that they can go out and bury, they said that they will put numbers. That way they've got numbers for you to provide to our offices for that. And before they bury them, they said they would put numbers. Next, what we've got is verifiable documentation received from sales of livestock, the injured livestock. Let's say you had, 4 cows, 5 cows, or whatever, that you hauled to the sale barn and were sold at a reduced price. Those cattle would be eligible also. You would just need to provide a receipt to our office to show what you sold those cattle for. Other things such as if it goes to a packing plant or anything like that, we would need a receipt for those also. Again, we need those receipts to show the kind, the type, and the weight, so we can break it down into which category they may fall into there. On talking about third-party certifications, if a participant is unable to provide acceptable documents as a proof of death or injury, the participant must use a third-party certification as a proof of death or injury. This here is a form that the person that is being used as the third party, they would complete part of that, and you would complete your part of that. I believe we've got some of those forms back there in the back table outside the door. You can take those. It's a form CCC 854. Again, on the third party, what I've got here is also, again, it's in the physical location of the county where the loss has occurred. On the CCC 854, the third party must be an independent source who is not affiliated with the farming operation. For instance, a third party cannot be a hired hand or a family member, as defined as a person who a member of the farming operation or their spouse is related as a lineal ancestor. Again, it has to be by the number, kind, and the type and the weight. Third parties are expected to certify only as what they know to the factual truth based on their own observations. Next one I've got here is, again, the supporting documentation as far as providing who the livestock owner is. Again, if you've never visited our office before, the first thing we're going to need is your ID number, whether it's your individual social security number, or if it's a tax ID number for an entity. You'll be providing a 902, CCC 902, which is the farm operating plan, a CCC 901, which would be for legal entities, identifying the members of those entities, an AD 1026, which is the highly roadable certification, and also a CCC 941, which is the adjusted gross income statement there. As far as the payment calculation for these death losses, for livestock death losses, payments are calculated by the number of livestock that died due to the eligible condition minus normal mortality, and by the applicable payment rate for the livestock type by the producer's share. The same way, as far as the payment calculation for the injured or sold, it will be for livestock injured and sold at a reduced price. It would be the number of livestock injured and sold due to an eligible loss times the applicable payment rate minus the amounts received for the sold livestock times the producer's share. That's what I've got as far as my slides here. I was going to go through my notes again. As far as what we've got, is the important thing is your documentation for your beginning inventories and your death losses there. So again, going back over that, like I said, the documentation is some of the most important things. Your physical location, county of where the livestock death losses occurred. Your beginning inventories, establishing those, anything such as your ledgers, vet records, bank inspections, balance sheets, insurance documents, also calving receipts, anything that you can to establish a beginning inventory. Same way with your death losses, pictures, things like that. Those are the important things there. Again, you must file a notice of loss by the person or entity that owns the cattle for the livestock. You'll file your notice of loss on a CCC 852 with the county office. It's by calendar year, so in other words, the calendar year for 24 LIP is January 1 through December 31. Let's say you had cattle that died in this situation, and say we get into December and we get into a blizzard situation and you lose some more cattle. Or in the summer, something gets struck by lightning. Keep those records because that is still continued on in this LIP program year here. So those cattle or livestock would be eligible continuing on into this LIP program year. Again, those notice of losses, we can get those filed as soon as possible. The application for payment, again, no later than 60 calendar days after the end of the calendar year, which is going to be March 1 of 2025.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Becky Weaver. I am a program specialist in the state office in College Station. I typically work on the NAP program. I'm currently detailed to the Conservation Division as the acting conservation chief. So I'm going to talk about ECP and then also a little bit about CRP. I know that a lot of producers are interested in finding CRP land to graze since there is no grass in several of our counties. We are in the process of asking for an exception because, as you know, here in Texas, our primary nesting season started March 1st, and so we're not currently in drought. And so we're not able to graze that land typically right now. In the northern states, that primary nesting season has not started. So, you know, some of you, naturally, you're closer to going north than I am in College Station, so you might choose to go, you know, into Kansas or Nebraska or something if you can find that land. And that hasn't happened, so you would be able to go there. But we are working with the national office to see if we can get an exception to see about getting local contiguous counties that where there is CRP that we might be able to get some of that grazed. So bear with us as we try to work on that and see if we can get those exceptions. But do know that, you know, if you can find that land north of us and that primary nesting season hasn't started, that you can go and graze on that land. Also, while Robert was talking about ELAP, he failed to mention that, you know, for ELAP, you can move those cattle to CRP land. It's going to be eligible for the ELAP as long as that land has a conservation plan in place. Okay. First, I'm going to talk about, hopefully all of you are actually producers with USDA. You've been in our offices, you've done business with us. But I was going to go over a couple of things before I go into ECP. If you have not been in our office, we are going to require you to bring in some stuff so that you can do business with us. We're going to need your driver's license and your social security number. I know that both of those kind of talked about that. And your IRS EIN number. We're also going to need a copy of your deeds if you own that land, survey plats maybe. If you're leasing that land, then we're going to need copies of those rental agreements or leases so that you can prove that you have the ability to be on that land. If you're an entity, we're going to need those articles of incorporation or trust and estate documents. Anything that's going to show how you're doing business, we're going to need a copy of those so that we can get those in the county office so we make sure we are paying you correctly going forward. If you can have all of this information when the first time you come into our county office, it will just make it so much easier for us to get things loaded, get you down the road the way we need to get things documented. Once you come into our office, we're going to give you a farm number. If you've done business with NRCS, you have to have a farm number. If you have RMA insurance, you're going to need a farm number so that can be done. So it's very important for you to come into our office and us get you that farm number. You know, we're going to look at a map, we're going to get your boundaries, we're going to get your farm drawn out. We're going to, you know, make sure that we have all your information correct. By having that farm number, you're going to be able to vote in our county committee elections, and then also have all of our routine servicing notifications provided to you. As both Randy and Robert talked about, you know, we're going to get a 902, which is our farm operating plan. We're going to need a copy of that adjusted gross income certification, which is our CCC 941, and then have you complete that 80-1026, which is our highly erodible land and wetland conservation compliance certification. Be aware that for the ECP program, AGI does not apply. So, you know, that's a good thing for ECP. For those of you that might be above that 900,000, as Robert said, that's going to be looking at our 2020, 21, and 22 years for your income when we look at those. So ECP, which is our Emergency Conservation Program, this helps farmers and ranchers to repair damage to the farmlands caused by natural disaster, and helps put in place methods for water conservation during drought or wildfires. The ECP program does this by giving ranchers and farmers funding and assistance to repair the damaged farmland or to install methods for water conservation. Our land eligibility. FSA county committees determine land eligibility based on on-site inspections of damaged land and the type and extent of the damage. Our eligible lands include land that is used for commercial farming, ranching, or if you have an orchard, our grazing for commercial livestock and production, and then conservation structures such as waterways, terraces, windbreaks. Now, if you do happen to have a conservation problem that's pre-existing prior to the wildfire, then it's not going to be eligible for ECP assistance. ECP is going to be a cost share program, and we're going to provide up to 75% of the cost to implement approved restoration practices. If you happen to be a limited resource, socially disadvantaged, or a beginning farmer, we're going to pay up to 90% of that restoration practice. Now, please be aware that for ECP, gender is not an eligible SDA type. If you're limited resource, you're going to be able to be eligible beginning farmer, but gender, you know, like for ELAP, gender is considered an eligible payment increase, but it's not going to be for ECP. Now, we're going to be limited to paying you $500,000 per person or legal entity. And then if you're restoring or replacing fences, we do have a 25% advance payment to help buy those fence materials, which can be beneficial. So some of our restoration practices that we have to rehabilitate farmland, it's going to be removing debris from the farmland. This may include cleanup of wind or water deposited, such as debris or woody material. You know, this could be brush that's in the fence line. We can pay to remove that brush, and also to remove that fence if you're replacing that entire fence. Restoring the fences. This may include livestock cross fences, boundary fences, cattle gates, or wildlife exclusion fence. Then we have restoring conservation structures. This could be wells, livestock water facilities that have been damaged by the wildfire, or if you have solar panels that are used for those water wells, that will also pay to replace those solar panels. We also have emergency wind erosion control. If you're needing to plant a cover crop, because we're going to have blowing sand, we can use that practice to plant that cover crop. And then we also have the practice for field windbreaks and farmstead shelter belts. So if you had any of those that were destroyed and we need to do debris removal, we can do that, and then also to replace those. So for our application process, this is going to be based on a needs determination and the producer's total allowable cost of all practices for the same disaster event. The minimum qualifying cost of restoration at the time of the application approval is going to be set at $1,000 per participant receiving a share on the application, or $250 if you're certifying as a limited resource, socially disadvantaged, or a beginning farmer. So for the ECP application process, typically what we're going to see happen is you're going to come in and you're going to file a cost share request on the CCC 848. Our technical service provider is going to conduct a site visit to assess the damage. Our technical site service providers are either going to be FSA personnel or NRCS. If the cost share request is approved, then the producer will receive and return the CCC 848A within 15 days of receipt of the notification letter. You're then going to complete your approved practices. Then you're going to come in and file a performance report and turn in your supporting documentation prior to that expiration date. And then once your performance report is reviewed, then FSA can issue a payment. Typically, we have 6 months for you to complete a practice. We have asked for an exception for a programmatic FSA 850 because of the wildfire to see if we can extend that to the initial expiration date being 12 months. We understand there's going to be difficulty finding contractors probably to replace some of this fence. And so we can ask for an extension of those. So, as you are approved and you see you're not going to be able to get that done within that 6 or 12 months, just come into the county office, request that extension so that we can take care of that and make sure you're not past your expiration dates. So when it comes time to turn in your supporting documentation, please make sure that you're providing all of that so that we can make sure that we get this process timely. That could be invoices, it can be your canceled checks, where you've paid receipts, or any other documentation you think that would help us be able to approve that application. Now, producers can provide their own labor. They can do the work. You don't have to have a contractor. But if you're going to do that work yourself, you're going to need to provide some statements showing when the work was done, dates work performed, cost per hour you charge. If you hired, a high school kid to come help you string that fence, provide a list of the hours that you paid that employee, expenses or equipment that you used. If you're going to rent equipment because you don't have it, provide that information, the type and cost of materials that you used, and any other applicable information. Now, donated materials are eligible. If you've received some of these donated materials, you can still be reimbursed for ECP. That's not going to be a problem, but you're just going to have to document what you used and where that came from. So the application period, you're going to apply for assistance, like I said, through the county office and submit that CCC 848 cost share request and provide requested supporting documentation. We currently do not have an application sign-up period yet. We are in the process of working on those with the national office. As soon as county offices meet with their county emergency boards, they're going to send us that documentation so that we can then meet with the state board and then send that up for a request for sign-up. So, work with us. We're in the process of getting all of our information, just like you are, so that we can get these programs implemented. But we will notify county offices once they're approved to implement that, and then we will put that out in newsletters, info bulletins, text messages. There's multiple ways that we will notify producers of when the sign-up deadline is. As everyone has said this week, from NRCS to Extension to us, it's very important to document what you see when you go out there. Take pictures of the fence, take pictures of dead cattle, take copies of invoices where you've had those animals rendered. It's very important to provide good information so that we can use that in the county office to process your application for whatever program you are applying for, so that we can get you service just as quick as possible. Another thing, if you're not currently an FSA producer, or even if you are, because we have a lot of producers that are still not registered with us, you can go to farmers.gov/subscribe, sign up with your email address so that we can keep you notified of all the information that we have going through email. That gets our newsletters to you. Also, would tell you to sign up for our text messaging. You can text FSA Now, and then put in your TX and your county name, and then you would be signed up for text messages. It's great information that we provide through text messaging. They're not lengthy, text messages. There's just going to be a few words reminding you of deadlines and whatnot. So definitely try and get signed up for our newsletters and text messaging, and you can do that on farmers.gov. Also, just in case you didn't know, Rick Hargrove, where are you, Rick? If y'all don't know Rick, Rick is the CED that handles Hemphill and Hutchinson County, and his direct phone number, because I want Rick to get a lot of phone calls.
I did for the same purchase that.
What did I say? Oh, I'm sorry. Hansford and Hutchinson. His number is 806-659-3036, and that's in Hansford. So if you've got questions, reach out to him, reach out to us at the state office in College Station. We'd be happy to help you, any way we can.
Pretty short. My name is Stacy Garton. I work for the Farm Service Agency. I'm the farm loan manager in Clarendon. I currently service Donley, Hall, Armstrong, and Collingsworth counties officially. Unofficially, I am helping cover all of District 1, which is, I think, about 16 counties, give or take. And it's just myself, and I have one farm loan PT that I have that helps me, and that's the whole of our farm loan employees for that district. So I'm going to talk just a few quick points about emergency loans. It's not going to touch on everything, not even close. I'll be here afterwards. If you guys have any questions, come up to me, find me, ask me. I will answer what I can answer, and if I can't answer, I will find the answer and I will get contact information. I'll be contacting you. First thing I wanted to touch on is a couple of different farm loan resources that we have available to provide you guys information and assistance. Farmers.gov is a website that you can go on. At the top of that website, there is a loan tab, and it has all information, including information about emergency loans and all other loans that we offer that might be able to fit your needs as well. within farmers.gov, there's also what we call a farmers loan assistance tool. It's a super easy navigation tool that you go through, answer specific questions, and it helps you through the loan process, essentially. Kind of know what you're in for whenever you're applying for one of our loans. So those are a couple of good resources. I really encourage you to look into those because I think they could really be a big help for you guys. So just touching on a few specific emergency loan things that I think are kind of most important. One is just note that all emergency loan applications must be received no later than 8 months after the disaster has occurred. So that's an important deadline for you guys to note. I believe that's going to be in October. And then also, like all of the other programs that we've talked about, records are super, super important when you're applying for farm emergency loan or farm loans. So make sure that you are keeping good records and bring those records in to your offices whenever you're applying for them. Next, there is a $500,000 limit on emergency loans. Several factors and calculations go into determining exactly how much an individual or borrower might be eligible for. Just know though that there is a limit to that, and $500,000 is the most an emergency loan would be able to cover. And then one notable and the last kind of notable thing I'll mention about an advantage that our emergency loans have kind of currently over our direct loans and some of our other loan programs is the interest rate. Right now, the current interest rate for an emergency loan is 3.75%. That's a fixed rate. And then right now our current operating interest rate's at 4.875, and that's for March. So that would be something to consider when making the determination whether an emergency loan can fit your needs or one of our other loan programs. Okay, I told you guys this was going to be short, so obviously that does not cover everything that we have to talk about with emergency loans. But we've been here for a while. I don't want to inundate you with too much information. I have a handout if you guys have any desire to go through that, figure out if any kind of emergency program might benefit you. Come and find me after this. I'm going to go ahead, because farm loan employees are sparse in this area, I'm going to give you my phone number directly to the Clarendon office. That way you can call with questions. Just be patient. There is only 2 of us. So my direct number is 806-874-3561. Or you can email me at Stacy, and that's STACEE, .Garton, GARTON, at USDA.gov. And then you can also contact my district director, Vance. He's standing right back there. And his direct number would be 806-447-2575. So, like I said, that obviously doesn't cover everything that there is to cover about our emergency loan program, but I think it gives you some pretty good important information to get you started. If you guys have any questions, feel free to come and visit with me. I'll be here. Thank you very much.